Do you ever have questions about your local government but have no idea who to ask? Honestly, sometimes we're not even sure, and we do this kind of thing for a living. But you shouldn't let that stop you from reaching out. Just call 311 or email 311@portlandoregon.gov, and they can resolve issues or help connect you with someone who can. 311 is available from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week, except federal holidays, but they'll get you information about your parks and rec classes, parking permits. You can even call to request ADA access or report issues in your neighborhood like campsites, graffiti, stolen bikes. Let me just put it this way. If you're wondering who to call and it's not an emergency, use 311 as your first stop. Today on CityCast Portland, we're continuing our look at this fall's sprawling city council race. With 12 seats up for grabs, there are more than 70 people running for office. So we're going district by district, talking with reporters who either live in the neighborhood or are following that district's race closely. And today on the show, we're talking through District 2 with Portland Mercury reporter Taylor Griggs. Now, District 2 encompasses all of North Portland and Northeast Portland above I-84. And currently, with over 20 candidates, it's the district with the most Portlanders running for city council. So get ready to hear a lot of names. It's Tuesday, July 16th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. So, Taylor, you're actually a resident of District 2, which I know nothing about. Never been, never heard of it. Tell me, what's the vibe like?
It's great. It's the best district. But, I mean, it's a big district. It encompasses both North and Northeast Portland. And a lot of the neighborhoods have very different kind of vibes. But I would say it's not as political inherently as District 1. I was listening to the podcast about that one. But it does have neighborhoods that have been underrepresented, especially up north.
Which neighborhood, especially up north, would you think is underrepresented the most?
I don't know that there's been any commissioners from St.
John's. St. John's, right? Yeah, I think you're right.
I was going to St. John's. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the furthest away. The Portsmouth, all of those areas.
Yeah, it's true. And I tricked you. I know everything about District 2. That's also my district. Know. Okay. Well,
that's why I was really nervous to answer these questions. I want to know what you think the vibe is. Can you?
I think that we are probably in the middle of the progression wave. Like, we're still pretty progressive, but like definitely our issues are different than like East Portland, but we have been traditionally underrepresented in certain areas. And of course, North Portland also encompasses a bunch of neighborhoods where the Black community was just kicked out. So there's that as well. And there's also a, history of gun violence here and also in East Portland. So I feel like we have similar issues, but it's just different. It's like it's flavored differently because we've been gentrified,
Yeah, true. It is similar in some ways. I think there's history of environmental racism in the Albina neighborhood, of course, with the I-5 coming in. And then also the people in St. John's, I've noticed, are talking a lot about the critical energy infrastructure hub across the river and Zenith and how a potential earthquake and oil spill could affect the St. John's area.
St. John's, yeah.
It's definitely something people in District 2 are focused on.
And like we mentioned, it encompasses pretty much all of North and Northeast Portland. It's an interesting district because it also covers some of Portland's most diverse neighborhoods and also some areas that are like either rapidly gentrifying or just like now officially flat out just like wealthy, like, I mean,
Irvington.
I was like, Irvington? Yeah.
Irvington, I don't even know. Yeah, if we call that gentrified. It's like just super, super rich, like the houses up there. And then Alameda on the Alameda Ridge. It's really nice to walk around and look at all the houses. But yeah, it's a very, very ritzy neighborhood.
How do you think the candidates so far have represented this kind of economic diversity?
Well, I think that the candidates kind of seem to represent a wide swath of, political spectrum. And again, that means like as far as Portland goes. So pretty much left of center and center. And then some more progressive candidates too. But they seem to come from a wide variety of backgrounds with lots of kind of different work experiences. Although I think the issues that all of them are talking about are fairly similar. And that probably goes for people across the whole city.
Yeah. You know what I think is really interesting about District 2? I mean, I know a lot of Portland districts also encompass this, but we do have a lot of industrial areas. You know, and I feel like we have that in common with Deep Southeast. You know, we have a lot of areas that are kind of like no man lands. And I just find that interesting in our district.
Columbia Boulevard or up into St. John. I mean, in that, like, most of St. John's is very lovely, but then there's some parts that are, I guess, some kind of no man's land, shipping containers, that kind of thing.
Our executive producer would also like to point out that we probably have the most pizzerias per capita than any other district, and that really should be accounted when we are discussing the candidates. All right, so let's go to the candidates. There's 23 people registered to in District 2, which is insane. Like, we can't go through all of them, of course, so we picked out the 5 candidates that reach the threshold to receive matching funds from the city. So just so you know, that's how we picked who we were discussing. And first off is Dan Ryan. Who is this guy? I've never heard of him. Have you heard of him, Taylor? I've never.
Barely. I do see him walking on Williams several times. Okay. But that's kind of the thing I know him from. We're sort of buddies.
Oh, Dan of Williams.
Yeah, of North Williams. Dan Ryan, he's the only current city council member who's not running for mayor. So he's the only current city council member who's among the list of councilor candidates.
He's in charge of Parks and Rec.
Yes, he's been in charge of other things. When did he come into office? In 2019? Because he replaced Nick Fish.
Yeah. He was a Safe Rest guy, right?
He was the Safe Rest guy, and that kind of had a bumpy rollout, I would say. So he, I think, took some flack for that at the time.
But it's doing great now, so.
It is, so I think he's taking some credit for that, which he should, because it is doing pretty well. I would say he's pretty centrist. He might disagree with that, but he has been pretty aligned with Commissioner Gonzalez this past year and a half on some issues that have fallen flat, I would say, on city council, like their proposed charter reform. Dan Ryan and Commissioner Renee Gonzalez proposed kind of a last minute reform to the charter reform measure that was voted in 2022 and gave the mayor a lot more power, which is interesting because Gonzalez is running for mayor. I mean, people came out and were super pissed. Like, it was actually a very interesting city council meeting. Ted Wheeler was really mad, at them for proposing this. It did not go over well. All the experts said this is not going to work. Stop.
Yeah. So where is he now? What's his platform? Is it just it's a Dan Ryan? Or is there a new Dan Ryan that we're seeing run for city council?
I would not say there seems to be a new Dan Ryan. I mean, as far as I can see, it doesn't seem like he's coming out as a whole new kind of candidate. So I guess maybe his kind of main thing that he's going to use as a benefit is, first of all, his name recognition. And second of all, the fact that he's been on city council before and all these other candidates obviously have not. And it's kind of going to be, a huge shit show potentially when everyone gets in there. It's going to be 12 new councilors, none of whom necessarily know what they're doing in some ways. However, it's a whole new council. So Dan Ryan also doesn't necessarily know what he's doing on this it's not going to run the same way that it has since he's been there. So it'll be interesting to see how that resonates with people.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we return, more District 2 candidates, including a reverend. Making the right senior living choice is more than just a simple move for your parents. These are long-term care plans. You need solid information and the right person to walk you through each step of the decision-making process. And Lynn Smarges is that person. She's a trusted senior advisor and placement specialist that works tirelessly to ensure your loved ones find the best care tailored to their specific needs and preferences. From independent living and assisted living to memory care, Lynn guides you every step of the way, offering advice, valuable resources, and unwavering support. She researches the retirement communities which best fits your senior family member's circumstances. Not only that, she sets up the appointments to tour
these communities and walks her families through each tour, advocating for them. You can rely on Lynn to offer your family the care and compassion you need during your senior living journey, because sometimes you just need that extra hand. Call in from Pacific Northwest Senior Care today at 503-830-1812 for your complimentary consultation and discover the difference a dedicated senior advocate can make.
You don't have to go away to get away. Calling all Portlanders. SCP Hotel is offering a special discount for Oregon locals, so you can save on your summer adventure today. Book with code CityCast for 20% off weekday stays. Explore SCP Redmond Hotel in the Oregon High Desert and enjoy next-level wellness amenities, farm-to-fork dining, proximity to natural landmarks, and an emphasis on locally sourced goods. With an ideal Central Oregon location in downtown Redmond, SCP Redmond Hotel is near Smith Rock State Park and Bend, Oregon. Guests can see for miles from their dining tables at the on-site restaurant The Rooftop, with panoramic views of the Cascade Range, including Three Sisters Volcanic Peaks, Mount Bachelor, and Black Butte. Book your high desert adventure at scphotel.com/Redmond today with code CityCast.
Well, let's talk about the next candidate, Nat West, the cider man.
Yeah, so Nat, I would say, has name recognition too, as someone who's previously owned a very popular cider company that I wish would come back. The ciders were really good. He's also, in his time running Reverend Nat's Ciders, he hosted a lot of kind of progressive events or like gave money to different organizations. He would be considered kind of a friend to different progressive groups around Portland. He has cited experience running a small business as important to his, political credentials. And yeah, I think that he's definitely a strong progressive candidate, or he, cares a lot about climate change, transportation. I would say his views on public safety and housing are going to be a little bit different than how the current council has handled them,
How so?
I guess I would say. It kind of more for getting people into housing first instead of thinking about criminalizing or banning encampments, that kind of thing.
Is he really a reverend?
Okay, he is. He's a reverend of cider. He loves and respects the craft cider industry so much that he is an ordained reverend.
Of cider? Because
Yes.
I've noticed that all of his campaign stuff says Reverend Nat, for city council. And I'm like, wait, so can he only marry cider? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, anyone can marry people now, so probably he can marry anyone. But there'd be some cider. He'd bring some cider metaphors into the
I see
marriage
what you're
ceremony.
saying. So he's a bit more small business minded, and he's pushed forward some environmental policies. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he's on his website. That's one of the main kind of things he talks about is climate. He's also currently working as a TriMet bus driver. So that's something to think about.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And he did that as soon as he stopped doing the ciders thing.
He's a really interesting candidate.
He is, yeah.
Well, let's go to the next one. So Nabil Zagul worked at Multnomah County for nearly 30 years with leadership roles in the Juvenile Justice Department, of Community Justice, and Health Department divisions. And he leads a program in the Department of County Human Services to provide direct case management and behavioral health and substance abuse. So he's worked in the Cully neighborhoods, which is a pretty diverse neighborhood. What do you know about him?
Yeah, as you said, has worked a long time in Multnomah County government, so he has that government experience. He seems to talk about addressing deep-seated issues, kind of the, systemic problems facing people, which is, contributing to substance abuse and behavioral health issues. So that would lead me to think that he, would kind of also be on the more progressive side of handling some of these issues that, have been really hot topics in Portland recently with homelessness and Measure 110, all of that.
So it seems like they have some experience working on the county side of things, which is, I think, could be useful for someone coming in through, for the city, since it seems like the city and the county have a lot of difficulty communicating.
That will be an advantage for sure. I think that's something he could kind of continue to talk about, because I think this is a big issue for many voters is the relationship between the city and the county, which a lot of people have thought is very disjointed.
Another candidate who has qualified for matching funds is Tiffany Penson, who's worked in city government for about 18 years. Can you tell me a bit more about her background and where she stands on things?
Well, yeah, Tiffany Penson currently works as the city's people and culture manager, which is a very interesting job title. She created her previous job, which was the supplier diversity officer. And she said that was to spearhead a citywide effort to direct business technical assistance and access to city contracts to minority, women, and veteran-owned small businesses. So she's focused on, small business, but also on making sure that minority representation is getting access to the benefits of owning a small business, and those businesses are being propped up by the city. She's also on the Portland Community College Board of Directors and was named the PCC board chair a couple years ago and reelected to the seat last year. She's someone who grew up in Portland, so she's talked about, how knowing the city's operations as someone who's worked in the city and also who grew up here, really deeply cares about Portland, and her focus on kind of business, but also on diversity and representation it sort of encompasses the politics of District 2 in a way, like progressive in the fact that you're trying to get more people of color and women and everything involved, but also, focused on business in a more traditional sense that the current city council has also kind of talked about.
Right. And then the last candidate that has qualified for matching funds is someone by the name of Marnie Glickman, but her last major project was in a school district in Marin County, California. So she's interesting in the sense of who you?
So, Marnie Glickman got a lot of press when she led an effort to change the name of the Dixie School District in the Bay Area to the Marin County School District. And the Dixie School District, I don't know why it was named that in California, but it references the Mason-Dixie line. And, the Dixie Chicks changed their name, so I guess the Dixie School District should too. But a lot of people were kind of pissed about this. This was in 2019. She has talked about this on her campaign trail. I heard her talk recently and she mentioned this, but she does maintain her, long-time residency in Portland. So I think it's been kind of on and off sort of thing.
Yeah. Marin County, traditionally pretty wealthy, pretty white, obviously, Dixie.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting
but
juxtaposition.
In California, it's so weird that they would do that in the first place. And but she's also a public interest advocate and organizer who works on political campaigns, including 2 previous U.S. representatives. And she's talked a lot about climate issues also and become kind of an outspoken transportation advocate, I would say, as well.
Cool. Well, what are some other candidates? I know you had 2 more out of the 23 that you wanted to discuss. There was Michelle DePass and Jonathan Ticini. Let's just quickly tell me what's up with Michelle DePass.
Michelle DePass, so she works at the city too. She's the climate change analyst for the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, but she's also worked in other roles at the Parks Bureau and the Housing Bureau. She's on the PPS board. And one thing I thought was really interesting about her is she is a lifelong Portlander. She currently lives, she said, just a few blocks away from where she was born. And when she was a kid, she worked at the Black Panthers Free Health Clinic on North Williams. She was 12 when she started working there. So she's kind of been involved in, I guess, community life in North Portland for her whole life.
Yeah. And someone from the public school system, that'd be a valuable voice to have.
Definitely, yeah. It's interesting how many of these candidates, all of them that we've talked about are very qualified and many have government experience for a long, long time. So, yeah, I think they're in a tough kind of pool here.
Yeah. Well, what about Jonathan Ticini?
So Jonathan Ticini is interesting because he's been pretty well known in the labor activist community for a long time. He was the president of the National Writers Union for almost 15 years and was a lead plaintiff in a Supreme Court case at one point, which helped set precedent for freelance writer rights, which is interesting. He also ran against then New York Senator Hillary Clinton in 2006 in New York. the Democratic primary, and gained like a lot of notoriety through that. He cited her vote for the Iraq War as the motivation behind his campaign. So he's like a pretty long time kind of progressive politician and activist.
Famous for losing to Clinton. That's
well, yeah. To be fair, I mean, she was an incumbent and very, very recognizable. But it was funny when he said this to me in the email, because we've been sending out questionnaires to all the candidates. But he told me that he ran against he said something like the well-known senator in New York, and I was like, okay. And then I looked it up, and it was Hillary Clinton. Okay, you could have said that. I thought it was funny. Yeah, I mean, maybe he didn't want to name drop, but yeah.
Oh, man. Or maybe he was being cheeky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, are there any other candidates who haven't yet qualified for city matching funds that you think are worth a look?
I think we could talk about Christopher Olson for a second. He hasn't lived in Portland very long, and you might know him because he's kind of gained some notoriety on Twitter for, I wouldn't call him a troll, but he engages with trolls, whereas someone else might just ignore these people who may or may not even live in Portland and are, saying all this crazy stuff. He engages with all of them. And I think he's gotten some, a reputation for that. He is out and about in the real world, though. I see him a lot campaigning.
What about Laura Stribe? Do you know much about her? I know she comes from like an arts background.
Yeah, she does. She's involved in arts advocacy. She has a nonprofit called Vibe, which is, I think it offers arts and music classes to young kids. And she also is kind of one of the people who created the arts tax, or was involved in that campaign to get that tax. So I guess you can thank her for that, if you, whatever you feel about it. The thing about the arts tax, I just wish they took it out automatically. It's annoying to have to send.
Yeah, for sure, right? It doesn't make sense. Well, yeah. That's a whole other conversation. All right. Well, there's still so many more. Do you see more people joining the race or people dropping out?
It's hard to say. I mean, there have been a few people have dropped out, but it seems like at this juncture, so I think that the date that people have to be signed up for their candidacy is toward the end of August. And it's getting pretty close now. Like, there's not a lot of time. I think that many of them have been in the race for a long time and have been kind of getting their name out there. So unless they were really well known already, I think it would be difficult for them to kind of make a case for their election at this point. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that there's so many candidates in District 2. I wonder.
Yeah, why District 2? Why does District 2, do you think, have so many more candidates than every other district?
I don't know. I mean, I think that it's, as we were saying, it's a pretty diverse area. There's lots of, it's big geographically in a lot of different neighborhoods. So I feel like maybe someone who lives in, I don't know, Concordia wouldn't feel represented by someone who lives in St. John's and wanted to kind of amplify their neighborhood.
Yeah, I feel like, Coley is like a completely different section than Irvington or the Mississippi area. And, everything's so different. So I can totally see why. But I feel like we are unified. What I'm hearing, their platforms are unified in small business or, I feel like North Portland does have a lot of small business push because we are a collection of like small downtowns. That's something that I feel like North Portland has more of than most other neighborhoods,
That's very true. Like there's the Kenton kind of downtown area, there's St. John's. Yeah, all of those feel kind of, very distinct.
Mm-hmm. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for hanging out and going through some of these candidates with me. I'm looking forward to finding out how this race shakes out.
Me too. Yeah, it's going to be, I am very excited too. But we need to hear these candidates' policies on the pizzeria business and how we can get it even more pizza.
Oh, you're saying more pizza. I was thinking less pizza.
No, of course not. Now, what's your favorite pizza place in District 2?
Oh, in District 2, I have to say Gracie's. What about you?
I don't know. I think I asked this question and I don't even know.
Taylor,
I'm looking for suggestions. Okay, that's my answer. I'm looking for suggestions.
If any of the 23 candidates can get back to Taylor Griggs about the best pizza, you might have her vote. All right.
Yes, thank you. I'm not going to promise anything, but I would like to hear from everybody.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Taylor. I appreciate your time.
Of course, thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.